Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN Network. Of course, this is a podcast that talks about all the happenings, not only in the Star Trek universe but in the Orville universe as well. Now, before we get started, I'm just going to tell everybody I put in some new technology on the podcast. I call it the anti-improbability field. I've been told it'll work. I don't know the Ferengi I bought it from was a little sketchy. Hopefully, this doesn't have everybody break out in song during this podcast, but there are no promises. But with that, we're going to get things started here with introducing our absolutely phenomenal crew joining us as always. He's a top-notch security officer. Rumor has it he might be able to carry a tune. I don't have full evidence of this, but I know he plays a mean bass. It is Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Good to be back, enjoying talking about some more Star Trek. Sorry, Kyle, we're getting some transmission here.
No, don't click on the email, Kevin. Don't click on the email.
I have to find the pattern, a pattern repeating. I found myself here all alone. I know. I'll pick up all the pieces, repair what is broken alone.
Damn Ferengis.
Oh. Well, what happened there, boy?
I'm waiting for your hair metal version of this. I'm just saying.
I know what you're talking about. What's up, man?
It's going to be an interesting show. It's an interesting time for Strange New Worlds. Kevin, we're almost done with season 2.
I know.
It's flying by. And I know somebody who is very sad about that because I know she has not got her quota of Captain Shiny Pants for this season. It is our wonderfully talented, intelligent super science officer and a mean trigger on the phasers, Miss Haley Stoddard.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. I'm really excited to check out this new anomaly that we've discovered in space. It's super cool looking.
Yeah. Just remember, the zipper theory doesn't work.
Yeah, I know.
Does Captain Shiny Pants go all the way back to like season 2 of Discovery? Is that where that goes? That reference?
Pretty much.
Yes.
I think it does.
Yes, it does. We have continued to say this for that long. Yes.
That's funny.
Because they were shiny pants.
Yes,
they were very shiny pants at the start of it. But guys, we got a very interesting episode of Strange New Worlds to talk about, which means first and foremost, before we get started,
spoiler alert, please watch out. This is a spoiler alert.
Kaylee, can you please open the airlock?
I got my finger ready on the button, I promise.
Yeah. That teleporter it might malfunction at any time during the episode. We're just saying that. But
eat your heart out, Will.
Obviously, spoiler alert ahead. We are getting our Subspace Rhapsody on as we talk about the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, episode 9 of season 2. I can't believe we're already here, but we are going to have a very, very interesting episode of Strange New Worlds to discuss. So without further ado, let's hit that warp drive and get into the episode. Okay, guys, the musical episode of Strange New Worlds is here. Subspace Rhapsody. We've all seen it, but before we get on to our thoughts, Miss Stoddard, would you care to join us in giving us the Admiral's Log episode synopsis?
Of course. James Kirk visits the Enterprise to Shadow Number 1. While conducting communications experiments, Uhura broadcasts a recording of Anything Goes into a mysterious subspace fold. It produces an improbability field that causes the Enterprise crew to begin singing about their feelings like characters in a musical film. Pike has an argument, in song, with Batel in front of the crew. Chapel wins a prestigious research fellowship and reveals in song that she prioritizes it over her relationship with Spock. La'an voluntarily confesses her feelings for Kirk before the musical can force her to, but he tells her he's already in a relationship with Carol. Ooh, who's Carol? An affected Klingon ship intends to blow up the fold, but experiments reveal that this will eventually destroy all starships in the vicinity. Uhura determines that singing an upbeat grand finale will provide enough energy to close the improbability field before the Klingons arrive. She encourages the Enterprise crew to sing about the fulfillment they find in working together and exploring space. And when the song concludes, the improbability field dissipates.
Okay, guys. Episode we've known that was going to be part of the season for a while now. It's hit. I'm just going to dive right in, guys. And Haley, you're here. Let's start with you and get your first reactions to the musical episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Okay, so normally I'm pretty good about watching episodes at least twice, once just for fun and then twice for taking notes. This season I've been really bad. So I just watched this. Like, I finished like half an hour ago. And I don't know, I guess I didn't realize that we were going to have a musical episode this season, and I loved it. I thought it was great. It had fun, it had lightheartedness, it had heart, it had character on its own, it had science, which was really cool, and it had this big thing of connection and working together and the connections that we have with others and how we can relate to other people through various different ways. And so I thought it was so much fun. So
Haley, are you saying the episode blinded you with science?
Not quite. Not quite. There have definitely been like more science heavy episodes, but the fact that I just went and saw the fact that I just went and saw Oppenheimer, and they bring up the Heisenberg compensator and essentially the Heisenberg principle in this episode was really fun.
Mr. Reitzel, you are the musician of the crew. You have actually been in a band and performed, and so I'm leaning to you. Your thoughts on the musical episode of Strange New Worlds.
So I knew this was going to be the musical episode. I've heard the rumors and seen, the teases about it online. And I was at work on my lunch break in my car, and I was watching it for the first time when it popped on Thursday. I knew I wasn't going to have time to finish it, but I started watching it in my car. And as much as I was looking forward to it, it kind of caught me off guard because I wasn't sure how they were going to take it or handle it or whatever. And it was kind of like to make the comparison to music. It's kind of like when you go in to see a band to play for the first time, because maybe they're opening up for the band you're there to see. Or you're in a situation, whether it's a county fair or something, and some band comes on, you're not sure what to think of them, but then they kind of grows on you and then you start digging it a little bit more. But I was a little uncomfortable at first watching it, even though I knew what was going to happen when they were going to introduce the music, because I didn't know who was going to break into song. I didn't know how they were going to sound. And so I'm kind of like, oh, what's going on here? And so I kind of stopped it about 20 minutes in, went back to work, and I didn't finish watching it until today during work. And I was in my car going, oh my God, it's awesome. I love it. It's so good. And I was getting into it, and I liked how Leon's like, this can be a security issue because they're going to be singing about our feelings. I thought that was kind of funny. And then I started thinking about who's singing I like best. And then I started thinking about, man, can you imagine all these upcoming Star Trek conventions where like the cast of Strange New Worlds is going to come out? The only question they're ever going to be asked for the rest of their lives, can you please sing your part from the Rhapsody episode? And that's what's going to happen. You know it. Come on.
Well, I think there's a couple of them who will gleefully do that every time they are asked. For the most part,
gleefully. I see what you did there, Kyle.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I might not sing, but I will get my musical references in.
I have to say, as the security officer you're this close to being put in the brig, Kyle.
Yeah, well,
I may not have been like in a band, but as Kevin and I share a musical inclination, I was in band for like 7 years. So you're insulting the security officer, and that's probably not a good thing.
I was always told that what happened at band camp stayed at band camp. So and you know what? I'm down for a little Jailhouse Rock. What can I say?
Nice.
Guys, for me, this episode, I really didn't know what to expect. Musical episodes have been kind of a hit and miss thing in TV history. Some great ones I can think of are, of course, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Once More with Feeling, which was one of the greatest musical TV musical episodes in a long time.
Okay, hold on. What else is out there that's that memorable?
The Flash had a wonderful musical episode.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Grant Gustin is actually quite the performer for Broadway musicals and things like that as well. And he did a phenomenal job. Grant Gustin actually was on Glee for a while. So I know that Always Sunny in Philadelphia has done a musical episode. Grey's Anatomy, I think I had read, has done musical episodes. There's actually been more than what you would think. So what I really liked about this episode is even though they had the musical premise and that it could have gone goofy, I really think they handled why everybody was singing was in an intelligent way and not just having it be this totally random thing. But I think they did a really good job too of actually getting some pretty serious character development through this episode. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but this episode, for a lot of people, this episode was fun. I know this wasn't everybody's cup of tea, and that's always going to be what's going to happen when you have a musical episode like this. There are just some people who they're not going to be able to roll with it. But you know what? From what I've seen, it's gotten a great response on the internet. Most people are enjoying it, and you can buy the album on iTunes, and it's on Spotify, I believe, as well. You have premium, so they even already have the album out. But guys, it was fun. We had a good time. But before we move on into our away missions, I want to talk about the cast a little bit. Specifically, guys, I want to talk about who, in your opinion, were the best singers in the cast and who grabbed your attention from that. Kevin, you actually provided me an article here from film.com where they ranked their personal choices. But before I get into that, I'm going to ask you guys, give me a couple of the cast members who stood out for you with their singing ability. Kevin, since you're the one who presented the article to me, I'm going to ask you to go first.
Lieutenant Leon Noonien Singh, I thought she was the best singer, in my opinion. But they were, most of them were all good anyway. But the song that I liked the most, though, was Nurse Christine Chapel. I love the style of that song that she did. It was something you'd see maybe out of Chicago or something like that. And especially since she was talking about, the job that she got, and then doing it right in front of Spock, and sending a message, which I want to bring up later. I like Chapel's song the best, but La'an I thought was the best singer.
Haley.
My favorite is actually, and this was surprising to me, Ethan Peck. He's the first one that sings in this episode. Was not expecting that. And I think he did really, really well. The two songs that he did were, he starts singing and then the rest of the crew kind of starts joining in randomly here and there. That was kind of fun. And then his song after Nurse Chapel's song, where she's talking about this internship, this fellowship that she's gotten, essentially breaking up with him. He's the ex. And how that feels, because, we are getting this Spock that's exploring his emotions and allowing his emotions to kind of give more than he will later in life. So that was great. However, my favorite song actually is when number one is singing to La'an about keeping secrets, whether that's from others or even from yourself. I felt that one really just kind of hit home for me, and how we can hurt ourselves by keeping things to ourselves. I thought that was really a powerful song in the moment. And And then I got to give out a shout out to Anson Mount. I think he actually did a pretty good job. I was surprised, by all the different parts of the crew. And granted, we only had a few people that actually got to sing like a song. Everyone else just kind of joined in on things. I think, he did a fantastic job when he was singing, and who doesn't love Captain Pike expressing his true emotions to his girlfriend on the bridge in front of the entire bridge crew? Awkward, can you say?
Yeah, just a tad.
Just a little.
And we did find out her first name is Marie, which
who?
Had
Captain Battelle.
Or Captain Marie Battelle. So, for me, I think honestly, my favorite number was actually Uhura's solo towards the end. I just thought it was incredibly well performed. There's parts of that song I kind of identify with in a way. So I thought that was good. Obviously, Christina Chong was phenomenal as well. I thought for the most part everybody did a really good job. I was actually very surprised by Paul Wesley's singing ability. I wasn't sure, and I wasn't expecting him to be part of this episode, so I found that very interesting as well.
Sorry, real quick. Sorry. I got a quick question for you guys, real quick. I've heard a few people and some guests that we've had on this show, Kyle, not a fan of Paul Wesley as Captain Kirk. I don't know, Haley, if I heard remember what you said, but I want to get you guys' quick thoughts on how he is portraying Kirk.
Haley?
I'm appreciating the different kind of where Kirk is at in his career with this telling. And I'm letting it kind of simmer and kind of see where they go from here, and like how many more times we see him and how he maybe changes to kind of be more the Kirk that we get in the original series. I think sometimes he's there and then sometimes he's not. And I kind of like that dichotomy where he's not the brash Kirk that we see when he's captain of the Enterprise, and the brash Kirk that we get in the JJ films, where he's that super arrogant, I'm Kirk, kind of attitude, but he's younger Kirk, right? This is younger Kirk who has grown up with his dad, as to where the JJ films, he doesn't have his dad. So he's competing in his head against his dad, but not knowing his dad. So this is Kirk that knows his dad, but it's pre-TOS Kirk. And so I'm not going to fault him for not being Kirk enough at this point. But I'm enjoying like what we see, I think. I think he's getting there. It's going to be a journey.
I think his performance has made some interesting choices. I know Mark White, who was on and talked about this with the last Paul Wesley episode, he calls him, like, I like him. I would like to see him in another role besides Kirk, because he's just not feeling the Kirk vibe from him. And to a point, I get that, because there is something about both Chris Pine and William Shatner, who they have this natural charisma that I don't think Paul Wesley quite has. That doesn't, or at least it doesn't show out through his version of Kirk. But the more he's on and the more he's involved, I think there's an interesting thing that in my opinion, that I've noticed what he's done with Kirk. I think he's actually humanized Kirk a little bit more, not made him so much of a caricature of what we know of Kirk. And I think he's brought more emotion to Kirk than we've either seen from Shatner or from Chris Pine. And I'm liking that. I would have liked to seen him brought in as a new character, because I liked what he's doing, but I can see why people aren't really vibing with him as Kirk as of yet. But I do think it's very interesting, the approach he's taking to Kirk.
It's a good point, Kyle. I was kind of trying to figure out how to formulate my thoughts on it, and I'm kind of where you are, actually. There's kind of, I'm not saying necessarily a sensitive side to him, but more of an intuition, or can kind of read people in not a different way, but can kind of pick up on something when it comes to if they're holding something back or emotionally or something like that. And I think Paul's doing a pretty good job on that side. And I knew it would be different going into it, and I've been open to the different interpretation. So, yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah. So getting back here, I do want to finish the thought too on the singing of the episode, because I'm looking at the /film.com. Two things to take note of. Celia Rose Gooding is a Grammy Award winner, and she has been on Broadway. She actually had a run on Broadway from 2018 to 2020 on the rock musical Jagged Little Pill. So she has been very musically inclined for a while. And Christina Chong, who of course plays Lieutenant Luann Noonan Singh, she just released an album. And I brought this up at the end of last week's episode. She has her first album just came out. And I think there's probably a reason why this musical episode came out about the same time her first album came out. So I think there's a nice tie in there. She has got some amazing voice work. But yeah, I think for the most part, nobody in the cast should be ashamed. Ethan Peck was surprising. He kind of had that voice. He has that kind of voice of like just a seriousness to his singing, but it's like
Josh Groban.
Yeah, Josh. There you go. Like Josh Groban.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Mariner, live action Mariner, saw Spock singing, how much more hotter she would think he is?
Okay. Now, to be fair, Chloe has not watched Strange New Worlds. She's like watched episodes here and there. So she was kind of out here when I was watching the last episode, and she was like, I mean, she's kind of right. He is cute. And then today she was like, wow, he's got a nice singing voice and he's cute.
So
Kevin,
that's where it starts. There you go.
Yeah. Kevin, so what you're saying is next season we need to have a crossover musical episode where Boimler and Mariner come back for a musical episode.
Yeah, the thing that would be funny, but what I find interesting about this episode is that they tied everything back to stuff that previously happened. They just didn't completely encapsulate it into one show and didn't think about anything. You even saw like previously on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And so it was nice that they tied everything together into the musical stuff and the lyrics and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that brings us to a good point, Kevin, because I think on that note, it's time to transport ourselves into our first away mission. Okay, guys, it is time to get into our first away mission, and we are going to talk about the musical aspect of the show, but I also want to talk about something else as far as this episode goes. As fun as the musical aspects of this were and what they did, Kevin, you brought up the point just now. They did a great job of incorporating things that have happened in this season and that were going on into this episode, and they did a lot of character advancement in this episode. And I want to talk about that because there's some major character things that happen within this episode. And I wanted your guys' opinion on what stood out for you as far as what happens with some of our characters in this episode. Kevin, you brought up the point, so I'm going to throw it right to you.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the song about that Chapel sang about her going on her, what's it called?
It's a fellowship.
Thank you. Yeah. But I was kind of doing a little search on this because I was wondering if I was kind of feeling the same way, and apparently I'm not alone. And I found an article on Reddit done by, I'm going to give credit to Admiral Archon. Subspace Rhapsody. Chapel was so cruel to Spock. After cultivating and reinforcing Spock's human side and getting him to allow emotions, how can someone be so carefree and cruel to someone they supposedly have feelings for? Don't get me wrong, she's excited about the life-changing opportunity, but did it really have to crush Spock in the process? I can see how this reinforced his commitment to Vulcan ideology and philosophy, but it did not have to be that harsh and frankly bitchy. To be clear, Spock and Chapel are not compatible. I'm not mad at the breakup. I'm mad how she did it and treated him in the process. I truly believe Spock would have supported her, but with all that running around and avoiding was very childish and ultimately cruel. I'm not saying that I feel exactly the same way, but I was just like, damn, you're like slamming him in front of everyone and doing this dance routine. That was a little harsh, but the song was kick-ass though, I gotta say, and the routine and everything like that. And it, I like Nurse Chapel. So,
Haley, what about you? What stood out from you as far as character advancement in this week's episode?
Yeah. So, well, first off, I want to comment on that. Remember, like right before this, La'an is mentioning that it's intense emotions and that this is a security threat. And these intense emotions are causing people to sing and admit to things openly in song that they wouldn't have normally said or probably said in a different way. Now we know that Chapel, like beforehand, they're like, how are you going to tell Spock? Are you going to tell Spock about this? She obviously was going to tell Spock about this, and probably in a different way, not in front of the entire Enterprise lounge and everybody that was in there, and in this excited song because she's excited about this fellowship with reference, and I know we'll get to the Easter eggs, Dr. Corby. That's right. And if you don't know your TOS, go watch it and learn who Dr. Corby is. Anyhow, and the significance of this for Nurse Chapel. So I think that is like, we have to take that with a grain of salt that she didn't intend it to be that way. But because he confronts her, and also him and her are trying to determine how to collapse this field that's happened without destroying the entire universe, essentially. It was kind of like Spock was inviting that, and so was Uhura like, well, here's the opportune moment to find out what we need to find out to fix this problem. So, to go off that, I loved the opening where Uhura, you saw her doing what Uhura does, right? In the original series. She is managing all communications, all these incoming communications, as they say, the old-fashioned way. So even internal communications in the ship, she's having to navigate those and manage those the old-fashioned way, and she's doing so much work, and you can tell that she's like, whew, when she finally gets a break, she's like, man, I'm exhausted, because they're taking all this energy to look at this, what was a gorgeous subspace fold. I mean, the visuals on that was absolutely stunning. It was beautiful.
I just want to say,
yeah.
Sorry. Okay. I just want to say, I remember Roger Corby, but I remember Andrea more.
Yep.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. And if you don't know, you should go watch the original series and be in the know.
Yeah.
So I loved seeing that. I think because Uhura has been struggling with what she's wanted to do, I think based off of the previous episode, and then her managing all these communications in a way that is very kind of TOS like. I think that was really wonderful for her character. And then I think Lon realizing, after that song with number one, I think realizing that she can have this part of herself and talking to Kirk and kind of breaking rules despite being the security officer because she doesn't want it to come out in song. She tells him what happened essentially in a rundown and saying, I can connect with others and I can do that even though I had this connection with someone and they kind of feel this connection with me. I think that was really powerful for her character because she's been very standoffish and her character puts people off because she's afraid to connect. And I think that was really powerful for her to realize, hey, these secrets I'm keeping hurt no one but myself and don't allow me to connect, which has kind of been the overarching theme of this entire season, is our connections to others and how that connection propels us forward as individuals and then propels us forward collectively as well. And so I loved that aspect of it. I think for characters, those were my favorite.
I think for me, there's a couple of things with this episode that really stood out as far as the connections with the different cast and what they did as far as growing the cast. And for me, one of the big ones was Spock and Chapel, because that was just harsh and you really felt for Spock. And in the back of my mind, as I'm watching that kind of play out, I'm like, I know this is something she really wants, but at the same time, what sacrifice did Nurse Chapel make to be in a relationship with Spock? Where Spock made huge sacrifices and decisions that led to him being in a relationship with Chapel. I'm like, I'm kind of watching this going, that seems a little ungrateful. And again, yes, it's coming out in a song that she can't control and high emotions. But still, I mean, I'm watching this going, no, yeah, this explains so much of the changes in Spock. And I think that's one of the biggest things for this that I've followed this season is this cycle they've done with Spock, with exploring more of his human emotions. And then what looks to be, at any rate, at this point, having this big thing that really, really hurts him deep and makes him really give into his Vulcan side from what it's at least forecasting here. So I thought that was very powerful. I think this was a tour de force episode for Uhura. The moment when Pike says, "You are the voice of the Enterprise," that's huge. I mean, that's a big thing because she is the voice that connects them all. She's the one that is sending out all these messages, is handling everything. And then you have Celia Rose Gooding, who is just phenomenal with her singing voice. And to have those powerful songs that she had and to be the one to unite the crew, it shined a spotlight on her that I think has been the best spotlight she's had on her maybe in the run of the show at this point, in my opinion. And then everything with Leon, I think it's been interesting because her character growth has been sporadic through the season. There was a focus on her at the beginning of the season, then it kind of disappeared for a while, kind of came back here in the last couple of episodes. And to have that moment with Kirk where she kind of opens up and then it kind of backfires on her, and not necessarily in a bad way, but just in kind of that, like, oh, we've all been kind of there at one point or another, and really feel for that. And I give the writers a lot of credit because I think when people go back and rewatch this episode, they're going to really see a lot of the character development they did once they get past just the fun, the musical aspect of it. And I just give the writers' room and the creators a ton of credit, and the actors as well, for the job they did doing this. Yes, Haley.
Before we go anywhere and before we get into mission number 2, can we talk about how Klingons apparently sing like boy bands and not heavy metal or rap I thought they would?
Oh, we are getting. Don't worry, I was not going to let us escape without this because.
Oh my god, it was hilarious.
Mr. Reisel, you were wanted to make very sure we got this into the episode. I just didn't see Klingons as K-pop. I did that.
There's actually
the original K-pop.
There's actually a cutscene. They weren't going to do this kind of boy band thing. The song they were going to sing was "Love is like a bomb, baby, come and get it on. Living like a lover with a radar phone. Looking like a tramp, like a video vamp. Demolition woman, can I be your man?" That was going to be the original lyrics, but they went with this one instead. So, yeah. This is great. I loved it. It was great. I didn't expect that. What a nice touch. Learn the boy band moves. You're all good. And it's K-pop for Klingon, which I thought was funny, not for Korean, which I thought was funny.
And Haley, I just want to give you credit because you turned this into Union Headbangers Federation. So
that song is one of my favorites. Anybody knows me. I crank that up and whenever it comes on. No, I thought this was hilarious. I started laughing immediately because I was like, Klingons in Dishonor. And I'm like, but wait, Worf sings. There's Klingon opera and like he blasts it on the Defiant like all the time. And everyone's like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. Like you're killing me with the Klingon opera. So why at first they were saying like, why are you, we've got to destroy this because you've brought dishonor. And I'm like, but Klingons love to sing about like their heritage and their history. And they have Klingon songs to honor their warriors. And now I know why, because it turned them into, boy banders.
Yeah. K-Sync, ladies and gentlemen, K-Sync.
That was great. It was so funny.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to transport into the second part of our away mission. Okay, I am going to get with our good friend Kevin John Mosby, of course, a great friend of the network who writes for Echo Chamber, and he's been doing reviews of Strange New Worlds all season long. But there was an aspect of his review that I find very interesting, and I think it's a question we really do need to ask. But I want to pull what I pulled from his review. And again, I would recommend going to Echo Chamber Online to read John's wonderful reviews of not only Strange New Worlds, but a lot of great things in pop culture.
Covers a lot of great pop culture. Give him a look out.
Yeah. So I pulled this from his review, though. Even for a science fiction series known for taking punts in unusual directions, the in-universe premise for this episode is utterly ridiculous. Improbability fields and universes that are built around the principles of a musical is just, well, silly. And if you're already watching, you either have to tune in or tune out to the excuse for an unapologetic and opportunistic stunt episode. Timing, as in both comedy and a musical, is everything. And Strange New Worlds, full of deserved confidence though it is, might have been better served if it didn't have two so high concept episodes so close to each other. The Lower Decks crossover, The Old Scientist, and Subspace Rhapsody feel like they should have been key marketable events in different seasons rather than Marmite on steroids efforts that exist in the back end of the show's sophomore run. And also something of an uncomfortable handbrake turn from the incredibly dark episode of Under Cloak of War that separates them. Now, for the record, John did enjoy this episode. He had a lot of fun with it. But I think right here, he brings up a very interesting point within Strange New Worlds. We are in the second season of this. We have had two episodes that I kind of agree with John. Should have been standalone event episodes within their own seasons with these two crossovers. And to be in the back half of this season and to go from The Old Scientist to Under the Cloak of War to Subspace Rhapsody, that's a pretty drastic turnarounds in 3 straight episodes. So my question to you guys is, are you satisfied as we're heading into the finale of Strange New World Season 2 with what we've gotten in Season 2? Or do you feel like maybe Strange New Worlds to this point through this season may have kind of had a missed opportunity or kind of didn't give you everything you were hoping for with the season so far? Kevin, I'm going to ask you this first because I think you're going to have I just got a gut feeling, I got a hunch that you're going to have an interesting thought process on this.
You know, it's funny you say that because I remember watching those Old Scientist episodes and then going into the Under the Cloak of War and how dark that was. I was like, boy, that was a 180. You know, it's interesting to, because we're even though we are returning to the episode of the week, the episodic formula with Strange New Worlds, which we've all welcomed and enjoyed. Yet, while you do the episodic formula, you still keep threads going throughout the whole season, whether it's relationships, plot points, but you can still have the mission of the week or the monster of the week or the guest star of the week. And then there's the other thing. There's the not necessarily the gimmick or the trope or something like that, but there's certain things that happen with episodic television that we've come accustomed to, whether now it's the musical episode or it's the real dark episode or a cast member dies episode or the, going back to the 80s and 70s here, the very special message episode. Maybe it's the 2-parter of a comedy series, the strange old uncle, that type of thing. Or the live episode, or in the two most popular television episodic tropes is the clip episode to save money, or the other save money episode is the bottle episode where you don't go outside of your set and maybe it's set in real time, that type of thing. Well, when it comes to this season, I think they've done a pretty good job of sticking to the episodic thing, but it has been a different flow with the second season. And I'll be honest with you, as it started, the first few episodes, I was kind of on the fence of like, is this better than season 1? Because there's a lot to live up to season 1 because it was good. Or is it going to be average? But I was kind of feeling, I don't know if season 2 is going to be as good the way things are going. I'm enjoying the episodes, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it's quite there. Then they throw in those old scientists with the crossover from Lower Decks. Then they get full on dark, probably one of the most darkest episodes of Star Trek ever. And then they just have this fun musical episode. And to me, I'm like, right now I'm going, you know what? This might be better than season 1. Because of these, if you want to call them gimmicks, that's fine. But the way that they are doing it, the story around those old scientists and how they got that together, it just wasn't thrown together. And this one too, how they tied stuff back to relationships. You know, I mean, like the scene where Captain Battelle is starting to call out Pike in front of everyone in a musical interlude. It's kind of like walking in on your parents having an argument that you're not supposed to hear because everyone behind Pike is going, you know, looking around like, should I be here? And they did a good job executing all of these kind of tropes and whatever, however you want to say it, that I think makes even season 2 one of the most memorable ones. Because let's be honest, when we look back on these episodes or these seasons, these 2 episodes, and I mean this one, Subspace Rhapsody and Those Old Scientists, are going to be the most talked about episodes, and the dark one too, Under the Cloak of War, all in the same season. These are all going to be brought up. Fan questions, you know, Mbega, all this type of stuff. We're going to look at it going, it might be these 3 episodes that make this season most memorable.
Haley, what about you? What are your feelings as this point in season 2 as we get close to the finale?
Well, for one, I'm sad for it to end and be over.
Yeah, I think we all agree there.
And I think the only thing so far at this point that has me like, okay, we haven't gone much into this, is the whole Gorn thing, which I understand, because if we're thinking of, okay, this is Pike on the Enterprise, this is pre-TOS, and until we get Arena and TOS, we don't even discuss the Gorn. Like, it's never even mentioned. It's never brought up at all, period. And so I can kind of get why, but they put this out there, right? That there's this Gorn threat. And so I'm intrigued by this. My brain's going, all right, they put it out there and they've just left us hanging. What's going to happen? What's going on? Are they leaving this just open? It's something of like, you know, hey, it's there, but we don't know how to handle it and don't know what to deal with it, which is understandable. That's a Trek thing of putting something out there and then just leaving it, you know, hey, let's go to this planet and let's, you know, Kirk it and destroy it and change their whole way of life and bye. We'll never be back. Save yourselves, you know. So there's plenty of that. So I think, you know, that's the only thing where I'm like, what's going to happen there? And I don't mind, on the flip side, I don't mind if that's something that's not mentioned, right? If that's something that happens maybe a little bit more in the next season, I'm okay with that. Because like Kevin was saying, I love that this is episodic, that this is calling back to, you know, we're all old enough. TV was episodic, you know, we had 2-parters, but it was kind of rare at first. And so you had to tune in and each episode was different. It's kind of like when you pick up a book series and you start with book 1 and the characters develop throughout the book series, but each book is a different story, completely disconnected. Maybe later on, halfway through or something, you know, a previous book gets referenced. There's a big book series I read by J.D. Robb. And there's this big case that happens in one of the books, and it's subsequently mentioned after. But like each book is its own thing. Like you could pick up there's over 50 books, just saying. You could pick up book 25, not know anything at all, read it, which is actually surprisingly how I started reading this book series. Read that book and be completely fine and never read any of the others, because each one is its own isolated thing, which is what I love about these episodes. You could watch any of them, and aside from character development, you'd be fine. You could pick up halfway through the season and be like, cool. And then maybe go back and watch just for character development the previous episodes. But you're not going to miss out on anything necessarily. You're not going to not have this in secret thing of like, okay, this is going on. There's not anything vague or convoluted. And so I love that each episode is different. And I don't mind that we've had these 3 really fantastic episodes. It was slower, like Kevin was saying. I wasn't quite sure either where I was at when the season started. I was like, all right, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to go from here? But I can love each episode for what it is. And if all of them are like these wonderful episodes that we all just want to sit and discuss, who cares if you have 3 and you're like, oh, well, if you're disappointed by the others, that's on you and that's okay, but how to sit and say that, oh, well, they should have spread these out so that there was this one amazing episode that everybody's going to love a season. But why do that? Because that's just going to say you're putting future expectations on the next season, that they're not going to be able to have some amazing episode like Subspace Rhapsody or, Under the Cloak of War or Those Old Scientists, because they've already done it. But they have so many other potential options to go from because it's episodic. And so next season, there could be, these really awesome episodes, and you could say that about the previous season too. You could say, oh, well, they should have waited to put that in the next season and not put all these amazing awesome episodes together. There's 10 episodes a season. What are they supposed to do? One really great episode and the rest of them suck?
Now, I think when I look at this season too, and we talked about this at the beginning of it, because there was a lack of Pike at the beginning of the season. Obviously, Anson Mount was not there because of becoming a father, but we also had the carryover of Una's story in the beginning that's fed through first part of the season as well. I think the other couple of things I look at, Haley, you brought up a great point about the Gorn thing, and that's what kind of been in the back of my mind. It's like, are they going to address this? Now, all things aside, for those of you who might be saying, oh, well, we know it's coming in the finale. We here at the Union Federation try not to watch spoilers for the finale. So none of us have seen that footage, if any footage on the finale, so we don't know. So maybe they're doing something with the Gorn in the finale when we don't know. Kevin, right? So you have a look on your face.
Kevin, did you watch it?
The remote was out of hand and it played.
Shame for shame. Excuses.
Where's the woman with the bell? Shame. Shame.
I was so comfortable sitting and watch it.
At least Kyle's in with me on the utter shock and surprise of.
I usually don't, but it was like, so anyway.
For shame.
The lounger got the best of him this week.
It's true.
It happens, so we'll let you slide.
Is it a Burka lounger?
Yeah. But yeah. what I did with this season, and what I think what they've done is and they've done something, I think, that because season 1 was such a hit, and season 1 just, I think it gave them some flexibility to experiment a little bit more and try. I think most TV shows, especially with only 10 episodes in it, honestly would have tried just one, like, I don't want to call it trope episode or stunt episode, but one episode that they just kind of went a little wild with. So I think a lot of seasons you would have only gotten something like These Old Scientists, and maybe another season you would have gotten the musical episode. But I think because they don't, not only do they listen to the actors and what they want to do, but they listen to everybody. And we'll find out when we talk about the Ready Room. There's a couple actors who really pushed for their musical episode this season. But they have the carte blanche, I think, right now, because I think without question, Strange New Worlds is the flagship Star Trek show right now. And it's not even close. And it's so phenomenal and it's so well received, they can get away with things. I do feel like that they've had some interesting storylines that they've been slowly developing through the season. But again, because it's episodic television, I'm curious to see how they're going to play out. And I think that's I think the frustration aspect of it and the feeling like you're not getting everything is because we are on these shorter seasons. And when you love something so much, you don't want it to end and you want to keep the story going. And we know when we've got one episode left and there's like all these dangling plot threads. We still have some of this time travel stuff out there, but they've obviously made an important part of Strange New Worlds. We have the mention of the Goran thing. We have a few other things floating out there. I think the other thing with the show is that we know we have a definitive time frame on it. They can't keep this show running forever. So I think that people get a little bit frustrated with all that, but I think this has been a very good season. I think I'm withholding my full judgment on it till the finale comes out, but I will say this, I'm not going to say it's better than season 1 because I thought season 1 was phenomenal, but I think right now as it stands for me, it's on par with season 1 for different reasons. And I think that's a good thing because it shows the diversity of the show and its creative process. And I think that's a very important thing. Kevin, you look like you're pondering a thought there.
I am. Could they just give us like maybe 13 or 15 episodes a season? Just I mean, I'm sure like on something like this, the actors and the writers would happily do a few more episodes a season. Like just to,
we're going to send you out to Hollywood and you can get in on the negotiations, Haley.
I'll make people listen. I mean, I'll pull out the paper cutter.
No, you don't want to know, people. You just don't want to know. But we're going to warp out into Away Mission 2 and a little Star Trek trivia. Okay, guys, it is time for some fun. We've got a little bit of trivia from this episode. First and foremost, guys, did you recognize a particular Klingon even though he was in makeup? Because Bruce Horak returns. Of course, our and all those who wanted Bruce Horak assured fans that he would return to Star Trek canon as a different character entirely. While one could argue this already happened in the episode Lost in Translation, in which Hammer appeared as kind of a psychic memory, Horak appears here again as the Klingon captain and K-pop lead singer. Guys, what a great way to get one of your a favorite actor back into the mix here. This was fun.
I think it was great that Bruce is back, but let me be completely honest here. It would have been better if it was an actual like former boy band member like Justin Timberlake. I mean, come on.
That would have been hilarious. Oh my god. That'd be great.
Well, up next we have one of the biggest Easter egg drops that was in this episode, Carol Marcus. Kirk reveals to Leon that he can't pursue a relationship with her because he's getting more serious with a woman named Carol, who is a scientist on Starbase 1. This, of course, referencing Carol Marcus from the Wrath of Khan, who we learned in that film, had a son with Kirk, but specifically asked Kirk not to be in his son's life at all. At this point, it's interesting because David isn't born yet, but we learned that Carol is pregnant. Kirk says, I tend not to stay in one place for very long, which is a growing problem because Carol is pregnant. The idea that Kirk couldn't stay in one place is referenced in the Wrath of Khan when Carol says, we were together, we were going to be, and you had your world and I had mine, and I wanted him, their son, in mind, not chasing through the universe with his father. To be clear, the idea that Kirk was a low-key deadbeat dad was a retcon in 1982, The Wrath. So if it feels retcon here, then this has to be going on for a long, long time. This is a pretty big drop when you're talking about timeline and everything that's happened within the original series and the films, guys. I gotta ask, what you guys thought of this, Haley?
Yeah, between this and I was like, oh, he's talking about baby mama Carol Marcus. And then between that and Dr. Corby, from What Are Little Girls Made Of, I love all these like just little threads to the original series. It's fantastic because again, unless you've watched the original series and you can just watch it and not even have like an in-depth knowledge of it and the films, you're gonna be like, oh, that's so cool. Like just little thing, like a name. They don't even have to say anything else. It's fantastic how they're doing it in these subtle little ways. And to be fair, I love also that conversation that Kirk has with Lon, and being honest and open and saying, hey, it's not that I didn't feel something either when you contacted me, and I'm not exactly sure why, even though it was a completely different version of himself that she interacted with, that he was open and honest saying, I have this on-off thing and it's currently on, but that doesn't mean that there might be an off time. I mean, we all know it's coming anyway because it's Kirk, but anyway, so super awesome.
Kevin, did you have any thoughts on the Carol Marcus Easter egg?
Yeah, I thought that was a great shout out there. So they never got married, if I remember correctly, right?
No.
Right. So yeah, it's his job's in space. He's always moving around, and this Carol was first introduced to us in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, and then then
Into Darkness.
Yeah, that's right, Into Darkness. And so I thought that was a great shout out because it made me think how this Wesley version of Kirk is going to handle I have a son who I don't get to see,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's kind of like the whole Picard thing. Enemies of Picard, knowing that he has a son, can make his son a target. Although I don't think Kirk's in a situation right now where he's made a lot of enemies. That has yet to be seen, yet to be done. And, keeping his son anonymous is a good thing. But I kind of wish that we could have seen an alternate universe where Kirk was a father to a son.
I think that would have been interesting as well. But this episode of Strange New Worlds not only had a lot of fun, it also recognized a couple other very important things in science fiction. Kevin, once more with feeling, because we got Strange New Buffy.
Yes.
After the first song, when the leadership of the Enterprise is discussing the situation, there's an exchange about bunnies. This is a reference to the Buffy musical Once More with Feeling, which has been named by showrunners as an inspiration for Subspace Rhapsody. And of course, the reference of bunnies was the character played by Emma Caulfield, the demon, had a very irrational fear of bunnies. And I love the fact, Kevin, that most people consider the Buffy musical episode the premier television musical episode of all time, and I love the fact that they found a way to give it a shout out.
Yeah, I don't remember another show before that really kind of took the all musical episode approach. So this was kind of like spearheading that type of thing with the show, which was great. And having fun with it and being, very clever in its execution. And I think that the showrunners knowing and giving a shout out to Buffy here is great because all the showrunners were younger and watching Buffy when it first came out, all around our ages and enjoying that one-off episode. Because when you look back at the Buffy series, and I'm going to make a connection here to Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, is there's like 2 episodes that really stand out. It's this one, and then the one where everyone loses their voice and the creepy guys all floating around, I'm forgetting the name of that episode. Kyle, do you remember?
Oh, I want to say it's Silence, but I know that's not right.
Yeah. Everyone talks about those the way I think going forward when it comes to Strange New Worlds and the legacy that it's going to lay. Everyone's going to talk about this episode and the Lower Decks episode.
I like that. So I haven't gotten to this point in Buffy because we're just not even finished with season 2, but I'm looking forward to it because you guys have talked about it. And also one time more with feeling is completely a band thing. I was in marching band all through high school. I actually did go to a camp for 2 summers to learn how to be student conductor because I was student director my junior and my senior year of high school for our marching band. And so this one more time with feeling, I actually have a shirt that says that. It's completely a marching band thing because you play one more time with feeling. And so that is kind of a reference to this episode because every time they're feeling something incredibly strong is when they bust out singing. And I think that's wonderful.
There was another science fiction show that also got referenced with this episode. And I'm going to ask you guys, did you guys remember to bring your towel to this podcast?
I always have a towel.
Yeah.
I didn't remember this reference because I only saw the movie once, and that's all I've seen.
For those of you who are fans of Douglas Adams and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
For shame.
The reference I'm talking about is the reference to an improbability field and the outlandish occurrences related to it, including the suggestion that the crew could turn into bunnies. It's likely a tribute to Hitchhiker's Guide of the Galaxy's infinite improbability drive, which caused at least one crew member of the Heart of Gold to start turning into a penguin. Now, I love Hitchhiker's Guide. I thought that's cool that they threw that out there. But I got one more thing with trivia. But Haley, I want to throw this to you because you've mentioned this person a couple of times in this episode, and I know you're very excited to talk about that. Give for some of us an education about Dr. Corby.
Yes, Dr. Corby. Okay, so there is this episode. It's pretty well known, I would suggest, in the original series called "What Are Little Girls Made Of?" And what are little girls you made of, you might ask? Well, Dr. Corby is the one who knows what little girls are made of, and his little assistant in some barely there clothing, which 60s again.
Andrea.
Yes, Andrea. So in
Andrea's
this episode, Carol Marcus receives this infamous message, and she encounters Dr. Corby years and years later because she's now been working on the Enterprise. And I don't want to say too much more because you really should just go watch the episode because it's a good episode. It's a good episode. For Andrea, yes, as Kevin would say, watch the episode for Andrea.
Do it for the Andrea. I'm just saying.
Do it for the Andrea.
Do it for the Andrea. With that, guys, that's going to wrap up trivia. So it's time to warp out into the Ready Room. This week's episode of the Ready Room, of course, hosted by Will Wheaton, Will was joined by Leon Noonan singer herself, Christina Chong, as they talk about all things musical. A little bit, maybe about how the musical episode of Strange New Worlds came about, guys.
Kyle, sorry, just double check your audio. You're going in and out.
Okay. Okay. How am I sounding?
Yeah, get a little bit closer to it because you're cutting in and out there.
Okay. So, guys, what did you guys take from the Ready Room this week? Haley, I'll start with you on this.
Haley was bad, and Haley missed it this week.
No, I think we can.
Hey, I'm doing really good.
Well, I guess I'm taking this one, Kyle.
Yes,
because
really
I was sitting on my very comfortable couch watching it with the remote out of hand, which allowed me to accidentally watch scenes for the next episode.
Okay, Mr. Reitzel. So, what did you pull out of the Ready Room this week? What did you enjoy, or what did you learn?
I was really excited in the behind the scenes of the Ready Room to figure out like how the members were first finding out about that and how some of them were talking about their musical past. But what I thought was great was that guy, I think he was French, the choreographer guy, which I thought was kind of funny. And it made me think about how like you saw rando members of the Enterprise dancing through the halls and stuff like that. I thought that was very funny. But them all like practicing on the bridge in their normal street clothes out of costume and learning the routine and all that kind of stuff. Cast members talking about recording their songs, in a studio, and then, I'm assuming lip syncing to them on stage and stuff like that. I thought that was really, really cool. I'm a big fan of Christina Chong. Might be crushing on her a little bit. I like the fact that she was in Greece, probably on vacation, maybe a movie, maybe singing a song. I don't know. But it was nice to see her interviewed on that. But I want to give a shout out to the section that they had on the costumes and the ladies that run that department. And then showing like all the fantastic costumes and how they did certain things, including touching on those old scientists with the cast of Lower Decks and what they did with their costumes. And I just, the costumes have been on point with this show from the very beginning, and especially this season as well. So that's what I got. And then accidentally watching the clip from the final episode.
for me, Kevin, you know what it is with Christina Chong? It's the accent. I mean, that accent will get me every time. That's it. But what I love too was that they had a segment, a pretty lengthy segment for the Ready Room, where they talked about the musical episode, and they did interview get comments from several members of the cast about their experience with the episode. We learned, how excited Anson Mount was for the episode. We learned how or the actress who plays Ortegas actually has a musical theater background, and of course learning about the singing pair of Christina Chong and Celia Rose Gooding, and how they are the background singers of the show. And I even like the fact that Will Wheaton brings up the fact that Brent Spiner and Jonathan Frakes were the musical people on Next Generation too, and they have that moment. It was just a lot of fun, and I love the fact that Christina Chong has said she was basically champion for a musical episode almost from the start, and that they kind of told her at a dinner before they told everybody else, and they made her kind of have to sit on it for a little bit before they announced it. I thought that was fun, and Kevin, I agree with you. The whole section talking about the costumes, this year has just been so spot on, whether it's been some of the amazing dress uniforms they've done, or how they interpreted the lower decks uniforms as well. They just did an amazing job with this. And yeah, it was the Ready Room. Will Wheaton has been on a roll since Picard season 3 with the Ready Room, and it's just rolled right in through this season of Strange New Worlds.
I really want one of the uniforms because they are nice.
They are sharp. They are very sharp. But guys, before we get out of here, let's intercept some subspace signals and look into the orb of prophecy. So, guys, before we get out of here, Kevin, you kind of snuck a look into the orb of prophecy. Is there anything Haley can cover her ears? Is there anything you want to say about the finale that grabbed your attention, or are you going to go in silent mode?
I'm not gonna comment on it because it didn't give a lot away. It just teased one thing that we knew was coming. So that's all I got to say about it. So
okay, well, next week unfortunately is the season finale of Strange New Worlds. I know we're all a little bummed about that because I love talking about this show. I have so much fun. This is my favorite Star Trek show to cover on Union Federation. What I love about it too is I love covering the show as much as we cover the Orville, but for entirely different reasons, and that's what makes it so much fun.
Can you imagine a musical episode of the Orville, dude?
Oh, the singing talent on the Orville. Scott Grimes should sing in every episode anyway. And then, of course, Seth MacFarlane is no slouch himself.
Okay, why did he not? He embodies the old time era of like the Rat Pack and Frank Sinatra time frame when he sings. And I freaking love Frank Sinatra. And so why he did not sing is highly disappointing to me.
I know. Yeah.
Highly disappointing.
I'm sure he's got one planned for season 4 now. if that happens.
If that happens. But also looking ahead, obviously next week will be our last for Strange New Worlds for season 2, but we'll take a little break, but we'll be back fairly quickly because come September, it's time to return to the lower decks and Kevin's favorite starship, the Cerritos. But will we see will they sneak in some Strange New Worlds into lower decks this season? Who knows? You never know with that. They have some animated cells of them now, so you can't. Who knows what Mike McMahon might come up in his craziness? But guys, it has always been a lot of fun. Hopefully, we didn't break out into song too much in this episode because Kevin's looking like he's holding it back. He's trying. It has been a phenomenal episode to talk about. A lot of fun. This has been one of the best stretches of Star Trek television in a while. These last few weeks of Strange New Worlds. It's just been a pleasure to have that going on. Of course, Amy Nelson is out with most everybody at the BQN in Las Vegas this weekend as Star Trek Vegas is going on right now. I would suspect that they are probably into about their 5th barrel of Romulan ale at this point, and it's just the first day.
No, but it's day 3, 2.5, really.
Yeah, No, I forget it.
It's Friday. They open. They do a little bit on Wednesday. So I mean, it's technically day 2.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. To all of our friends who are out there at Star Trek Las Vegas, have a great time this weekend. I'm sure there's going to be some interesting stories that might pop up since they can't necessarily talk about their shows right now. So this might be the time to get some of the down and dirty Star Trek things. Just saying.
Who knows?
But guys, thank you to my amazing crew. You guys were wonderful this week, as always. It's a pleasure doing this show with you. Thank you to all of our wonderful listeners out there. We can't do this without you guys. And lastly, guys, let's get into those hailing frequencies. If you are looking to find this show, whether it's on YouTube at the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel, or perhaps in the audio version, in the podcast version, you of course can go to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and tell your friends and share it out. Or find our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com, where you can find all of our wonderful podcasts. And of course, too, all of our shows are on your favorite podcast catchers, whether it's iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or so many of the other great ones out there. And if you're looking to contact us as well, you can email us at theunionfederation@gmail.com. You can go to the Union Federation Facebook page, where we try to keep you updated on all the Trek and Orville news when it happens. And of course, visit the Fandom Podcast Network's main page too, where you get updated on everything that is going on in fandom. And, it's been great talking Strange New Worlds. Of course, my name is Kyle. You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW, and on Instagram at AKyleFandom, and on Threads at AKyleFandom. Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter or X, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Spartan_Phoenix. And you got to squeeze a little, tease a little more. Easy operator coming knocking at my door. Sometime, anytime, sugar be sweet.
Keep the clothes on, Kevin. Keep the clothes on. Keep the clothes on. Haley, where can people find you on social?
You can still find me on, I guess we'll call it X. Soon to no longer probably be on there. And Twitter, if you still call it Twitter, and Instagram at Trekkie01D. And all I have to say is ba 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 ba.
Can we talk about the intro real quick?
Yes, please. That was so amazing. That acapella.
You didn't mention the cool singing intro version of
the acapella version. Mm-hmm. That and after the episode ends, when the field explodes, which was gorgeous, by the way. I'm going way off topic here because we're ending. It actually cues to the original series end credits theme song as I'm being attacked by a furry tribble.
Tribble has kicked in.
Was such a wonderful thing to end on. It was gorgeous.
Yeah. Of course, too, you can find Miss Amy Nelson at Miss Amy Nelson on Twitter, and of course, you can find her also over at the BQN, our fun partners over there, who, like I said, they're all out in Vegas right now. And you can will be able to listen to this episode of the Union Federation on the BQN network, as well as we should have a couple of their great shows on our channel too. But guys, it has been an absolute pleasure. Strange New Worlds. We got one more episode left. I can't wait to get into it, but I'm going to be sad because I'm ready for season 3 to start in about 2 weeks, and I know we gotta wait a little bit, but it's been a fun ride, and it's not over yet. We will be back next week with the season finale of Strange New Worlds. But until then, hailing frequencies are now closed.